Ladies, my fellow mommies, we are always so busy, on the go, kids screaming in the back seat, sleeping babies. I have the ultimate hack for you.
Welcome to the Stay Fit Mom Podcast with Krista and Tracy, your go-to girls for health, fitness, and keeping it real in mom life.
If you can't seem to get in a good groove with your nutrition and exercise program, this is for you.
We've coached thousands of women using macros for over 8 years, and I'm well known around here for my 5-day meal prep videos.
What does a macro balanced meal look like?
Hit subscribe to the Stay Fit Mom Podcast and join us for a fun, meaningful journey toward a healthier, happier you.
You got this, Mom.
Welcome to episode 3 of the Stay Fit Mom Podcast. Today, I have the privilege and honor of interviewing one of our very own clients, Michelle Santiago. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Tracy. I'm so happy to be here.
I've heard from other clients and other friends and listeners and followers that these client interviews are some of our listeners' favorite episodes. This is a personal treat, and it always feels like I get to go to coffee with the client. So thanks again, Michelle.
You're welcome. And I've enjoyed your podcast and I've gotten a lot out of them. So to be able to do this today and give back to some of your other clients, it's really special to me as well.
All right, tell us just a little bit about who you are, Michelle.
I have the benefit of living and working in Portland, Maine. Maine is just such a beautiful place. If you haven't been here, hope you get a chance to do that. I'm an attorney. And so sometimes having a work-life balance has been a little bit of a challenge. So that's in part why I actually started working with Stay Fit Mom.
I've never been to Maine, and I have heard this fall season that's coming up is the best time of year to go to Maine with the big leaves. And did you grow up in Maine? Have you lived there a long time?
I did. Yes, I have. I've had the pleasure of living here my whole life. I've been able to travel outside of Maine, obviously, and experience different parts of the state and the world. But it is so beautiful having all the natural resources. Being in Portland, we have a lot of great restaurants close to Boston and other cities. So definitely, if you come, let me know. I'll give you some recommendations.
Okay, I'm putting it on my bucket list for sure. How did you find us? What brought you to Stay Fit Mom? I always think it's a little, I guess, just regular businesses that are not exclusively online. You would maybe see the business establishment driving down the street or see a commercial on TV, or maybe a friend would tell you about this thing she's doing. So how did you find us?
Yeah, I have this wonderful group of women that I get together with every Tuesday. We have a run group. And one of the ladies in my group, Leah, and I were always exchanging information about what we're doing, health and fitness. And she was the one who actually had started with Stay Fit Mom and had gone through the program and recommended it to me. So through a friend, great, as always, a great recommendation.
That's awesome. And just a shout out to anybody out there that's listening that has done our program and shared it with a friend. That is still our number one referral system. As much effort as we put into social media marketing and emails, it's just so hard to establish trust with people over the internet. But when your good friend says, I'm doing this thing and it's really effective and you have to try this, I think that you would love it. That means the world to us. So thank you, Leah, for bringing us Michelle. And clearly, you just ate up the program and did all the things. But before the coaching program, what was your health, food, fitness looking like?
I've always valued health and fitness. I've always been active and always have tried to have a pretty healthy diet. So it's always been very mindful. Prior to joining the program, just looking at macros, I tried to count my macros, not knowing what I was doing. I am a vegetarian, so I've been a vegetarian for 20 something years. And the thing that I always found the challenge with, and that I've learned from tracking macros, is that not every meal has the same nutritional composition. And I would often go out to lunch with colleagues or friends and I would feel hungry after. And I was like, I didn't understand that. I just never felt full or had the energy. And macro counting was really helpful for me to understand how important protein is into your daily life.
And especially as a vegetarian, did you have a concept of how important protein was before?
No, not at all. Sometimes I'd realize, like, I'd have a salad for lunch and my friend would have the same salad, but they would have grilled chicken on it. After having lunch with them, I was hungry an hour later, and I never really understood that until looking at macros and then figuring out, how do I get that protein in? What's my number for the day? How do I meet that goal? And then realizing how important protein is and how important it needs to be part of your diet.
Yeah, for sure. So, what's really cool about this, Michelle, is that I feel like people swing on this pendulum of, oh, I can just count my macros. I don't have to pay attention to food quality. And I'm going to just take a gander that because you were a vegetarian, you probably had a really micronutrient dense diet. That's a really tough thing for a lot of our clients. It's a reach for them to make sure they're getting the fiber that they need, the vegetable content they need. So just having that micronutrient dense background would give you a huge leg up. Would you say that's pretty accurate for you?
Yes, definitely. You learn so much from counting macros, just being able to go back and reflect. What did you eat? How did you feel? How much energy did you have? How long did you feel satiated?
And so the protein really helps with that satiety, but
Yeah.
also the fiber really helps with that too. So do you feel like you had that prior to counting macros, like the fiber content piece or not?
No, no. I think there'd be times where I would eat, I don't know, just say like a bowl of soup or something like that. And just really didn't have any concept of what that was doing for me nutritionally, other than it was vegetarian based.
Are you a vegetarian for personal reasons, or was it personal convictions that you had, or was it because you genuinely thought, I'm going to be a vegetarian because it's the best thing I can do for my body?
I think just naturally, I've always fell into that category. And then I never ate a ton of meat growing up. It just didn't appeal to me. I've always just enjoyed eating vegetables. So it was a very natural transition. And I just felt better after doing it. But that wasn't necessarily the reason. It was just, that's, I think, just naturally what I enjoy eating.
Okay. So now that you're a macro counter, are you still a vegetarian?
I am.
This is so cool, Michelle, because the amount of people that think it's one or the other. You can't count macros if you're a vegetarian. So that's incredible that you can count macros, stick to your desires in terms of what your body needs. So you talked about how you would go out to lunch with your girlfriends and they would be getting a salad with chicken and you'd just be getting a salad. You were hungry an hour or so later. So when you started with macros, how did you reconcile? I'm going to be a vegetarian, but I have to hit these protein goals. What were your protein goals in the beginning? And how did you figure that all out?
So for me, there were certain things that I just naturally would eat that would have protein in it. Greek yogurt, eggs, cottage cheese, those things were always great protein sources. But it did require some effort to try to figure out how to get that into your diet without it necessarily being like an add on, but just be part of your meal. But then also having backup sources. So if you do go out to lunch and they don't have any sort of vegetarian friendly protein options, so you're just getting the plain salad, what could you have in your bag for later? Maybe a really good protein bar that had a lot of protein, but maybe not a lot of sugar to make it work for you for the day.
I know that our listeners want these meat and potatoes practical uses. So if you're going out and they don't have great options, what are some that you've got in your back pocket?
So one of the protein bars that I really like is it's the Built Bar, and it's the
Yep.
puff version.
Yep.
I think it's like maybe 17 grams of protein, I think.
Yep. I've
So
heard of that
that's
one.
always nice. I love to have those on hand as a snack, or if you do have that salad without any protein like that, you can just have that as an add-on later on. I also to have sometimes you don't always have the ability to make a protein shake if you're at the office or whatever, but I'll also have the Premier Protein, the pre-mixed ones. Usually have a few of those stashed at my desk to make things easier because those are like 30 grams of protein, I think. And sometimes what I'll do is put a little bit of that in coffee in the morning. So maybe you get 5 to 10 grams of protein just from doing that.
And those simple things really add up over time. I'm going to put 5 to 10 grams in my coffee. And you might think, what's the point? That's hardly anything. But if you keep doing those little things, before you know it, you hit your goal by the end of the day. So, what was your protein goal? Do you remember in the beginning?
I think it's probably around 120, maybe.
Wow.
120 is a really nice number to hit that for a day and to feel good throughout the day, to have the energy you need.
Okay. So, 120 grams of protein as a vegetarian. Some of your biggest tips, just want to recap: built protein bars, the premier protein shakes, just little things. What about tofu? Do you do tofu?
Some, not a ton. Greek
Or you
yogurt,
pick
eggs, and
cottage cheese and
cheese, which you can actually mix into your eggs. Takes a little while to cook to get the water out,
oh,
but that's a really good
whoa.
protein packed
Okay.
breakfast. And then also Krista makes these wonderful oatmeal protein bakes. And so I've incorporated making those. And sometimes that's part of my food prep. I'll make several and freeze them. So that way if you don't have the time in the morning, you can just take one out, warm it up, and there you
Awesome.
go.
So, how much weight have you lost, and what other non-scale victories stand out to you the most?
So I think with life, right, you always have these sort of ups and downs. For this current season of my life, I would say that I've lost probably about 12 pounds. So it's never a straight line, right? It goes up, it goes down. But in this last season of life, that's where I am at. And some of the other non scale victories have been being able to run longer, having your clothes fit better, feeling stronger. There's many different ways, I think, which is what I love about this program, is that there's many different ways to define success, and
Mm.
it's not always what the scale says. So it's always great to look at all those other areas. Where have you had improvement? And looking at those and not always looking at the scale.
Yeah, and 12 pounds is nothing to downplay either. I know that we have done a lot of interviews where it's 70 pounds, but honestly, you had a very healthy diet before in terms of micronutrient dense and things like that. And so 12 pounds is still very significant, especially a woman of your size. So, yeah, I agree that the scale is not the end all be all, but also celebrate the magnitude that 12 pounds really is, because it can be the difference between I can't run with endurance and now I can. I can't wear this size clothing and now I can. And now I have energy throughout the day. So, that's so awesome. Very cool, Michelle. Are there any other big lessons that you've learned from tracking your macros?
I think just understanding that we're all different. And for me, I found that I was most successful and I felt the greatest throughout the day. Not when I took my macros and I divided them up over thirds, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. For me, I consume the majority of my food probably between when I get up and breakfast through 2 or 3 o'clock. Dinner is generally always my smallest meal. So for me, it's just figuring out what works best and not comparing yourself to other people. Because a lot of friends and family members, they will eat a larger dinner and have a very small breakfast or skip breakfast. And for me, I'm ready for a big breakfast or protein packed breakfast. And then I'm fine with having a much smaller meal. And so once I realized that and got into the groove of that and tracking macros and going back and looking at your data, looking at when do you feel good, that was actually really helpful to me.
I love that. I actually am similar, Michelle. I like to have my biggest meals for breakfast and lunch. But yeah, the freedom of counting macros and knowing it's okay if that's not you and you do something a little bit different. The goal is get yourself in a calorie deficit and make sure that you're eating macro balanced, and you have so much freedom with everything else. So I love that you found that's worked for you. That being said, there are also a lot of great benefits to cutting off your eating time, I guess, not like intermittent fasting in the sense that we're giving ourselves a really short window to eat, but just in the fact that we're giving our body time to complete that digestive process, our guts healing. So there are just a lot of really cool benefits about waking up hungry, your first meal of the day being super nutritious, high protein, And then also just giving your body a break at the end, because that takes a lot of work for your stomach to empty. And there's just a lot of benefits. Have you read Glucose Revolution, Michelle?
I have not. I'll have to add that to my reading list.
You should. I think that you would love it, but it just talks a lot about how to regulate your blood sugar and how that really helps to eliminate food noise and give you satiety. And one of the tricks that she talks about in her book is giving your gut time to do what it's supposed to in terms of digestion and things. So, anyway, just what you said reminded me of it.
I'll have to check it out, because the other benefit that I've noticed from tracking macros over the last couple of years has been that I wake up feeling better, right? I used to always wake up, I think, with really low blood sugar and feel almost a little nauseous in the morning. And now I don't have that sensation as much. I feel like having maybe better amounts of protein spread out through the day, the way it works best for me, not eating a large meal at the end of the day. I wake up and I feel a lot better.
That's such a win when you can wake up and feel ready. That's great. I didn't even bring this up yet, but it's definitely super important to your journey. You've been working with Coach Chelsea. So tell us what that's like. Maybe explain it as if you were talking to a friend who has no idea what this online check-in system is like.
Yeah. Working with Chelsea has just been so wonderful. She's really been a constant in my life. We've been working together. I think it's been just over 2 years now. And she provides guidance and motivation. She holds me accountable. But what is wonderful is she's seen a lot of successes. She's also seen some setbacks on my end. And she provides kindness and grace. She recognizes when you may be going through difficult times in your life where focusing on macros can't be a priority. It doesn't necessarily go to the back burner completely or you stop it completely altogether, but she's really great at recognizing when you need to have a step back, but still be able to focus on a few things. And then when you get through that tough part, to go ahead forward again. So she's been wonderful. And we kind of joke at some point, we've never met. It has been this online relationship, but it's wonderful. And we share different recommendations. We always share stories of our families and pictures. It's really a friendship. And at some point, we're going to make the effort to actually meet each other. So that's on our to-do list.
That's so awesome. Yeah, there is just something to be said about having somebody that is totally unbiased look and speak into your situation. I had a very similar experience with one of the Stay Fit Mom coaches too, where our family's going through adoption. And it just felt like the load that I was carrying was so intense. And for her to just say, Tracy, it's okay that you cannot track your macros 365 days of the year. This is not the season. There will be future seasons. This is not it. And I don't know why I couldn't do that for myself almost. Like I just felt like, grind it out, Tracy, just keep getting tougher, keep digging deeper. And so I wouldn't tell that to somebody else, but for whatever reason, a lot of times we put that pressure on ourselves. And that's one of my favorite things too, is we know as coaches when to push and dig deep and hold people accountable, but also recognize when life circumstances might require a different tactic. And so that's really why we started this whole habits-based program in the beginning, and you've switched to it. And so I kind of want to transition to that area. What made you decide it was time to switch from macro counting to the habits-based program?
So I think it was the season of life that I was going through, and Chelsea was recognizing that I needed a bit of a change. It was really like a work-life balance struggle, and I am also going to school part-time in a master's program. So it was just really hard to do everything. But what I love about transitioning into the habit-based program is that having had the macro counting for a couple years, really, I learned so much from that, that it was a really nice, easy transition into the habit-based program.
That's good to hear. And that's really the goal. And we've said this since we very first started our macro counting program, is our goal is not for the people that come into our program to weigh their strawberries for the rest of their lives. That sounds so daunting. But that being said, just like you said, Michelle, having had done that tool and used it, you look at food differently. And I totally agree. So, what was your biggest fear about making the transition? One of the questions that I often ask our community, what kind of podcast episodes do you want to hear? And this was, I would love to hear somebody who has gracefully transitioned from macro counting to habit space because I have a lot of fear there. And so I was hoping that you could just speak into that.
I think I went into the program not having a lot of fear, but having relief just because of where I was in life. It was becoming more difficult to really focus on entering my macros all the time. So for me, I looked at it as a relief, but also went into it not thinking like, oh, you just don't need to track anything anymore, but really reflecting on what have I learned from tracking and looking at tracking as a foundation to building a balanced plate. So for me, it was you don't just totally forget what you've learned, you take what you learned and transition it into, I think, a easier way that's less daunting. It's easier, I think. And for me, it was also, I think, too, going back to enjoying vegetables and being a vegetarian. For me, looking at how you balance your plate between vegetables, proteins, carbohydrates, fats, for me, it was like that's just naturally how I would like to build a plate. So it was an easier transition.
That's awesome. I was thinking about years ago, I remember our community, we had this one event where MyFitnessPal went down. The app itself was just down. We were all on Facebook, and you would have thought that hell just broke loose. There was so much uproar, and that was a red flag. Have we become so dependent on this source of control that we can't adapt if the app goes down for a day? And yeah, I guess just like what you're saying, that having the foundation is so helpful to let you spread your wings and just pretend that the app went down for a minute and see how you do. Okay. So, next question is, what has surprised you most about this new habits based program?
Oh, let's see. I guess it breaks down. There's several habits, right, in the program that I've worked with Chelsea on picking. And what I like about it is the first set of habits I focused on for about 4 months. And Chelsea and I just worked together the last 2 weeks to change up some habits, looking at maybe the next sort of season of life, how things are going to change schedule wise, and incorporating some new habits. And what ends up happening is maybe if you have a change, your habits aren't necessarily going to be the same each time, but at least the way I look at it, the hope is that you've worked on that habit for so long. In my case, I had 4 months of these specific habits, that when we just made this change and with our transition, we just picked some new ones, that I've already put those into place, like the water, for instance, that I'm not incorporating it now. It doesn't mean I'm not drinking water. I'm still drinking just as much water as I've been drinking the last 4 months, but I've made it a habit that I don't need to now focus on it because I already think
Right.
about it and already do it. So that was really interesting. It's almost like you take tiny steps, and once you master and really incorporate those steps, now you add more steps. And I really like that. You're just focusing on a few things, learning those things, doing those things really well, making them a habit. And then you can move on and add more things. You don't lose the habits you've already developed, they're now habits.
And that makes me just think of even the beginner. A lot of people will join the macro program because they want the fast track plan, which we always say if you have a time sensitive goal and you are all in and you can devote every ounce of your energy and you're in a season for this, macro counting is your fastest way there. However, there's also this big, I don't know how to explain it other than I'm trying to like think of a visual, but it feels like a huge amount of just the Google tracker in itself. It's here's what you need to do for the fast track plan. Track your macros, also your water, also your steps, also your fiber. Here are all your biofeedback measures. And so it is a lot at once if your foundation is 0 and you've got to go baptism by fire. And so that's one of my favorite things about it too, is that yes, in an ideal perfect world, that's what we want to be doing. But if you can just nail one area, it's going to feel a lot easier to be able to then nail the next area. And then personally speaking for me, fiber has been one of those things where I would look at that Google tracker and go, I'm not going to worry about that one. I'm not going to worry about that one. I want to get green on all these other things. And so that one's just got to go. And I have pushed that one over. And then once I was like, okay, I need to focus on that. And all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, fiber is really such an important part of overall health and weight loss. And the fact that I just thought, I'll just do that one when I can. And also just the personal aspect of it. What you need to work on, Michelle, is different than what I need to work on. And so that's another one of my favorite things, is it really helps to personalize the program even more.
Yeah. And the other things that I think are great about some of the habits, they go hand in hand, right? So for me to have a balanced plate, I have to have meal prep and planning. So that's a habit that we've kept consistent. And I think that always makes sense to have that as one of your habits. But some of the things that I'm focusing on now are sleep routine. And exercise was a habit before, and now it's more of just step count, just because I think, again, season of life, we're in summer, it's been great, very active, but we're going into fall and then winter. So I think your step count naturally drops as colder weather is upon you. So for me, it made sense. Let's switch that to step count just to make sure that as winter comes, I'm still being active. And then that balances nicely with sleep routine, because usually I like to get up and work out in the morning. So if I'm working out in the morning, I need to go to bed early. So we looked at those two as a nice pairing. So I think that's also really nice on the habits, is that you can look at a couple that go hand in hand. So it's not that you're necessarily focusing on 3 or 4, you are, but at the same time, because they go together, it makes it easier to work on those habits together.
Absolutely. That makes so much sense. I know you said meal prepping and planning. I love how you mentioned that. Yes, that should always be a marker that leads to balanced plate eating. And it is a habit that people struggle with. So to just hone in on that, and instead of saying you get the check mark if you hit the macros, but to change the reward system and to say you get the check reward for just putting in your effort to meal prep, which is eventually going to lead to the other thing. But yeah,
Right.
what other habits did you use?
So for the first 4 months, I did water, exercise, movement, and then meal prep and planning. So those were the 3 that I focused on. And then we just switched things up. And so now it's still meal planning, prep, as I mentioned, sleep routine, and then step count. So 10,000 steps a day and 3 days of formal exercise. So the 10,000 steps a day has been very easy for me to get over this summer. I'm usually 15, sometimes 20,000 steps a day. So that's been easy. And the reason why we changed it again is because we're going into a different season of life, and actually just a different season, going from summer to fall and eventually winter. It's harder, I think, to be as active when it's colder outside, not as motivated to go out. So I felt that by actually looking at steps as well, that would be a good way. I'd still get exercise, but you could exercise in a particular day and still have very few steps if exercise is your only form of movement. So looking at it from a step count, I thought it would be a great way to make sure I still get formal exercise, but also be active throughout the day as well.
I love that one. And also the sleep routine. I've had that habit as well. And that has changed the game, because I think with the sleep, it's also the one that's just not a like sexy habit. It's just, oh, sleep. But just for me, the simple act of establishing a sleep routine where Chelsea's also my coach, by the way, Michelle. So I know exactly what you
Wonderful.
mean.
Yeah. You know
So
the benefit.
yes, I do.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we talked about was cutting off social media by 7:30. And I didn't realize the days that I do that versus the days that I don't, my cortisol is elevated. I can feel like I wake up with my chest pounding. And just this week has been a very big social media news week with things that are going on in the world. And I'm like, yeah, I feel like I'm going to have a panic attack. I got to do my deep breathing. And it's just that all of that is connected, all of
Yeah.
it.
Yes. And for me, on the sleep routine, I guess the way I would go through it a day is I would go to bed after I would get everything done. So if that means 9 o'clock, great. If that means 11 o'clock, so be it. And
Mhm.
so now what I'm focusing on is looking at what does my schedule look like for the week? Certain days you just have certain things blocked out. If I want to exercise on these days, this is the only time I have to do it. And so, what it is going to force me to do is do things more in the morning before work, which means I won't be able to get up and work out in the morning if I'm going to bed at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. So, I think what it's going to do for me is it's really going to make me realize that there's only so much time in a day. And I was actually joking with Chelsea the other day of the way I operate is I treat 24 hours like it's 36, try to
Mhm.
get so much packed into it, and you realistically can't. So I think by
Mhm.
looking at the sleep routine, what I will now do is start at the time I want to go to bed and work backwards. What does my day look like? What day can I realistically get that? If it's a longer workout, if you're doing a 5 mile run, that takes longer. So what day can I do that? What's the sunrise? What's the sunset? Like looking into all those different things and actually scheduling my week, trying to plan when am I going to get the cardio in? When will I get the strength training in? So I think looking at the sleep routine for me from that aspect is going to be very helpful.
For sure. You're gonna be a time management ninja. I love it. But yeah, I never saw it that way. Really, sleep routine, it's like you're checking the box for time management because you've got to just be on point. I'm so glad that's your habit right now. That's such a good one. Okay, so do you still find yourself using skills from macro tracking in your everyday life?
Yes, definitely. I know what meals I eat or when I eat those meals, when I eat what the protein is, how I feel. And so going back and looking at that data has helped with the habits. So I still make sure I have high protein sources early in the day, throughout the day. I'm not entering all my food into my macro app anymore. But once you really understand how much is for me, I eat a lot of the same things. So I know that type of meal is going to put me at these numbers. So I think it's like you're doing the math without having to write it down.
For sure. In regards to you saying, like, eating the most earlier in the day, when you're tracking your macros, I would always it sounds like you did similar things, like, you can get far behind on your protein, and so just having that mentality of I first wake up in the morning, I'm gonna take a big chunk out of my protein budget. I'm gonna hit that right off the bat so that the rest of my day will be so much easier and still keeping that mentality without tracking every single thing. Just knowing my first meal of the day has to be very protein heavy, robust. And yeah, I think that's a hard skill to master if you've never tracked for any length of time. You might think having peanut butter on your toast will do it. I've heard people say that peanut butter toast, that's great. You're doing protein in the morning, but really that's not going to cut it.
No, you learn a lot about macro counting. And I think going through the program has been wonderful because that's how I started. And having all that knowledge, understanding, foundation has been wonderful to be able to switch. And I want to say have more freedom because it's not like you have a lot more freedom necessarily in what you eat. You're still building a balanced plate, but you have more freedom that you're not constantly on your phone
Yeah.
putting
In terms of
in.
the mental load that you're carrying
Right,
that you're tracking.
right.
That's so awesome. Okay, you said that you eat a lot of the same things. Do you have and you already told us about one Stay Fit Mom recipe that you use a lot, which was the baked oats, right? The oatmeal protein bakes. Or do you have any other favorites?
It's funny because all my friends and family that know me really well know that I do not follow recipes. My work life is very structured. And so when I'm in the kitchen, that's really for me to be more creative. If you're baking, for instance, baking is very much you have to follow a recipe. It's very science. I don't bake, I cook. So for me, following a recipe, it just doesn't give me the creativity and the freedom that I really want. I don't want cooking to be thought of as a chore. I want it to be a fun activity. And that's how I make it fun, is that I don't follow recipes. Now, having said that, I save all of the monthly macro meals. I read them. I love looking at them for inspiration, but I don't follow recipes. So
Great.
I was just looking actually at Krista's, because I do love how she does the bowl preps. That's like a
Uh-huh.
big game changer, especially when you are tracking your macros, because you do it once and then I would populate it for 5 days. So tracking was so much easier. I was looking at a few things that she was making. So I have some things like on my list. She had these like KFC chicken bowls, and I always have to make a variation because I want it to be vegetarian friendly. But we're also going into a new season too with fall. So I'll probably, I don't know what I'll have on my list, but something with pumpkin, I'm sure.
How fun. Just saying that. I hate cooking. I hate it, Michelle. But I'm like, maybe I hate it because it is a chore and I am reading this recipe every time. But if I gave myself the freedom of a little bit of this, a little bit of that, this flavor profile, maybe I would enjoy it more.
Yeah.
So that's just interesting.
Yeah. I feel like we at our house, we eat a lot of bowls, salad bowls, grain bowls. So food prep could be just making sure you have all the protein sources, all the veggies that you need, and have them cut up. And then you just take them out of the fridge. Maybe you want to roast some vegetables ahead of time. So for me, it's more of building and being creative in the kitchen. But I do love the recipes and I love reading them for inspiration. And then I just adapt to them however they fit
I love
into.
it. Michelle, what do you feel most proud of in terms of your whole journey with Stay Fit Mom?
I would say that I'm most proud of making a healthy lifestyle a priority. We have to have love and respect for our health and our body. And we ask a lot of ourselves and of our body to do the things we need to do, the things we want to do. And having prioritizing health to be able to do those things is important. So I'd say that's making healthy lifestyle a priority is what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, that is so commendable, Michelle. That's amazing that you've been able to do this and prioritize it, not just for the 6 weeks you were super motivated, but for years of realizing, I know that if I keep this a priority, the rest of my life will fall into place. Such a testament to that, Michelle. And it's awesome. Chelsea is going to be so jealous when she every coach, every time I interview a client, the coach is like, oh, I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
We might have to figure that out. Just
Yeah.
bring the coach in too.
Yes.
Okay. What would you say to any woman that's listening that's nervous about letting go of macro counting or maybe even just, oh, the habit space program? I don't know. It doesn't sound like tangible, something that I can. What would you say to that?
I think you've got to look at, again, what was the purpose of macro counting? What did you learn from it? And if you look at it from that perspective, that it was a foundation. If you go back and you look at all the days that you tracked or pick a sample of them, what were really good days energy wise, and taking that data, looking at it, analyzing it. It's not that you're throwing everything out the window going forward. You can just do whatever you want. You are learning from all that work that you did and you're putting that in place. You have a little bit more freedom in the sense that you're not constantly in your phone putting the information in, like how many ingredients was in that salad. You don't have to do that. So I think just looking at thinking of macro counting as a step, as a foundation and a healthier lifestyle.
What's the best piece of advice you'd give to someone starting their own health journey?
Realizing that great things come from small steps.
Mm.
So you don't have to change everything all at once. You really can focus on a few things, incorporate those once you've incorporated them into your daily routine, you've made them a habit, then you can focus on more. So before you know it, if you take all those small steps, you really will have covered a great distance. So I think breaking it down and into small, manageable pieces.
Love it. If you could summarize your experience with Stay Fit Mom in one sentence, what would it be?
My experience with Stay Fit Mom has been one of constant support and accountability, while it's been filled with kindness and grace. And for that, I am tremendously thankful to you, to Krista, to Chelsea, to all the work that everyone, you, all the coaches put in to all the clients. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. I got to interview a client every day of my life. The best part of the job.
Thank you for the time.
This was awesome. A gift to my soul, Michelle. Thank you so much. Of course, we're going to have in the show notes all the things that we talked about, the habits-based program, some of Michelle's favorite recipes, and just other links that would be helpful. What a joy.
Great. Thank you.
We appreciate you tuning in to the Stay Fit Mom podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Connect with us on social media and head to stayfitmom.com for more resources and tips. You've got this. See you next time.